So how was that little breathing meditation? Nice? Well, the first thing, it is rather nice, isn't it, just to breathe, because you're alive. Yeah? So that's something to celebrate on its own, I hope, right? And secondly, you see just how difficult it is to be mindful of the breath, right? It's not easy. And those monks that I spoke about before who were trying to impress the Buddha with their mindfulness of death, those people who said, oh yeah, I'll be mindful of death all day long and all night long too, then, you know, it's not likely that they really would have been very mindful, right? They would have been forgetful of death during that time. Because even within the course of one breath in, one breath out, it's so difficult to maintain pure mindfulness, even of just one breath. Even of just one breath, it's really hard, right? So if we had true insight into mindfulness of death, even for just a short period of time like that, then it really would make a huge difference in our minds. It really would kind of slap us in the face, give us a call, wake us up, you know, it really would. It really would wake you up. And so this is why we practice in this way, so that we can start to develop this mindfulness in a way that chips back at some of those ideas we have of future, of tomorrow, of I'll be alive, I'll keep living. Because that is something that prevents us from truly being present to life. This idea, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it next week, I'll do it next year, this is something that prevents us from being truly present. Imagine this was your last day. This is not one of those cults. This is not going to become but how would you live it knowing it was your last day? Sometimes I like to ask, how would you like to die? Do any of you have a preferred option? Yes?
Coconut fall on your head, didn't see it coming.
Coconut fall on your head, didn't see it coming. And I suppose we're talking instant death here.
Yeah.
Not a lingering... No. Yeah. Out like a light, yes?
I think about death, I want to die very aware and awake.
Aware and awake. So you know that many deaths are incredibly painful. Yeah. And people really suffer in their last moments. Yes?
Peacefully in my sleep.
Peacefully in your sleep. Who else wants to go peacefully in your sleep? Like, I don't even want to be around for my death. I'll just go peacefully in my sleep, like unaware and happy, right? So this, for many people, considered a good way to go. I think I'd like to get hit by an asteroid, take everyone out with me, something a bit spectacular. So the truth is, we don't get to decide. And that's what's difficult for us often to accept, the death of others, when people die suddenly, or in a car accident, or when people have a heart attack, things like that. You know, we become confused. shaken, we're shocked somehow that this has happened. We're surprised. We didn't think it would happen. Recently, a very, very sick friend of mine, she'd been sick for many, many years. She passed, and although she'd been sick for many, many years, it still came as a shock to many people. And I remember thinking, why are we surprised at death? Death is always happening. It's always happening, right? Death isn't a stranger. Death is a constant companion to us. But there's something going on in our minds, a denial, a willful ignorance about death. And it seems especially prevalent today in our culture. We don't like to think about death. We don't like to talk about death. Touch wood, shh, don't bring death. As if not talking about death is going to make any difference, right? We even sanitize death, hide death away. How many of you have seen a dead body? Well, quite a few. More than half. Some groups, especially the younger people I work with, they've never seen a dead body. Yeah. How was seeing a dead body for you? Yeah, it was useful, right? Yeah. It's good to see a body that no longer has any life, that's not breathing, the skin has changed, the colour of the body changes, all sorts of changes start to happen. So for many people, that's our first real, true understanding. There is this thing called death. Did it change the way you live your life? Maybe temporarily, right? So when people die, especially friends and family, it's often the only time we really take on board this big picture perspective on our life. So death is a useful tool for us to reflect on the spiritual path. But it's so easy for us to forget. You know, even if we've seen death, even if we've gone to the funeral, we turn up to work the next day and we just carry on. We start living our life again as if we will live for a long time, forever even. And it's not just death that we do this with in our life, it's things like sickness and old age as well. This is something the Buddha constantly taught old age, sickness, death. He taught the 5 reflections, the 5 frequent reflections of old age, sickness, death, separation from what we love, and karma, the truth of karma, that beings who engage in intentional actions will experience the results of those actions, whether good or bad. These 5 frequent reflections he encouraged lay people, monastics, to do over and over and over again. Reflect upon old age, sickness, death, that you will be separated from everything that you love, and that you will experience karma, the results of your actions. So those first 3, old age, sickness, death, these are kind of like natural processes, right? Old age. Sorry, some people in the room are like, oh, again. old age. Yeah, like natural process, right? But we try to put it off, don't we, as long as we can. Yeah? If only I just do my Pilates and put on the right eye creams, I can evade old age. Yeah? If only it was that simple. Yeah? If only Clarence could actually bottle something that was going to really prevent old age, not just take your money in the meantime. And something like sickness. You know, sickness is normal. I've been sick the last few weeks, and yet I think, oh, there's something wrong, I'm feeling so sick. But actually sickness is our usual condition, right? It's not something that happens to us, you know, in an extraordinary way. It's incredibly ordinary sickness. The body is always sick. There's always something going wrong. There's a little niggle here, there's a little ache there, a little pain there. There's something probably growing inside of us right now that could be the end of us. The body is always sick. It's not unnatural for the body to get sick. And yet we seem to think it is, right? If you just wear the mask, get the vaccinations, take the vitamins, then I can prevent sickness. Good luck to you. You're going to get sick somehow because this is nature. This is the reality. We can't avoid it. We need to understand it. The same with death, right? This isn't something that's extraordinary. Death just doesn't happen to other people. Death will happen to us. It's not something we should be surprised about. It's something that is happening to someone right now. It's something that any being who is born will experience. It's a natural cycle of being born, living, staying for some time, a short time, a long time, and then going through the process of death. So these are all natural cycles, right? And then this separation from what is beloved and pleasing to me, this is also just what happens. You know, you get possessions, belongings, partners, titles, status. Anything you get in life you can't hold on to. Sooner or later, something's going to happen, or your phone will break, you'll lose your ring, a thief will take away your television, and death will take away your loved ones. You will be separated from them. And eventually death will separate you from all that you find beautiful and loving and pleasing. And there's nothing you can do about it. This is just how it is. So you might be tempted, right? Like if this really was your last day, you might be tempted to, just have a party. Go down to the local bottle-o, smash the windows, break in, pull out what are we going to pull out? The whiskey. Yeah? Top end whiskey. Go down to, the television station, take it over, have a real party, right? You might be tempted if, death is coming, you might be tempted to just have a good time, right? But that last of the 5 frequent reflections, this kamma, this might give you some pause, right? Because karma is also this natural cause and effect. Just in the same way that it's natural to get sick, or it's natural to get old, or natural for a being that is born to die, there is a cause and effect of our actions. And so for many people, they don't have a belief in karma. They don't see the workings of karma. They can't understand how this action will lead to a bad result. So take something like what I just talked about, like stealing. Yeah, stealing is something that generates a lot of strong desire for something that isn't yours, and you take it away from someone else. When you take this stuff away from other people, you feel guilty. You feel a sense of shame. You feel worried that the police are going to come and knock on your door, that you'll get punished, right? So this is how we can see something like karma playing out, and eventually it will catch up with you. And so in these 5 frequent reflections, the Buddha is pointing out these natural processes that occur. And he's not just stopping at this kind of biological process, he's also pointing out that there's a moral dimension to our experience, an ethical dimension to our experience that we need to take on board, so that we don't just think, oh, well, if life is short, carpe diem, let's just do whatever we want. If that was the case, the Buddha would have said, yeah, go for it. Just do whatever you want. Have a great time. Knock yourselves out. But he didn't. And so that's important. At the time of the Buddha, there were all manner of different ideas about the nature of reality. And some people who believe that there was no consequence to your actions. Hiddenness in a way. Like we might find some people like that out in the world today. Do whatever you want, doesn't matter. And there are other people who thought that every single action we did was going to lead to some result, even unintentional actions. And the Buddha didn't agree with either of these positions. He said that intentional actions of body, speech and mind, these are what generate responses, reactions, cause and effect. And so this is something that he saw using his insight, his knowledge. And so this is what he shared with us out of kindness and compassion, so that we could understand, there is consequences to our action. We do have a concern for our well-being, both in this life and in future lives. And so these are the 5 frequent reflections of old age, sickness, death, separation and karma that he asks us to constantly ponder. And we'll do some more meditation shortly. But I wanted to give you an example of why this is important. Again, it comes from the suttas. And it's the story of when the Buddha met with King Pasenadi. So King Pasenadi, he was a very important king. Aren't they all? And he was a very busy king. Aren't they all? Right? And he saw him one day coming, the Buddha saw the king one day coming from some sort of important meeting or something. And you know how kings can be a little bit kind of self-important, right? Yeah. Maybe the Buddha wanted to just kind of reorient his view, his perspective a little bit. So the king comes along and the Buddha says, well, hello, king, what have you been doing? Oh, well, I've been very busy. Very important, very busy affairs of state. And the Buddha's like, oh, okay. You know that we're all a bit like the king? We're all very busy. We're all very important, aren't we, yeah? The stuff that we do matters. We get caught up in it. We get obsessed by the stuff we're doing. It's our stuff. It's important. And so the Buddha says, oh, okay, well, just imagine that a messenger came to you and said, "Oh king, from over in the east, there's a huge mountain boulder that's rolling, coming towards you, crushing everything in its path." So that sounds a bit grim, doesn't it? Like this huge mountain boulder coming, pummeling everything in its way, coming straight for you. And then another messenger comes and says, from the east, from the north, a boulder coming, rolling towards you. And from the west and from the south. Also, right? Like these huge mountain stones coming, crushing everything in their path. Death and destruction, right? And the Buddha says, so what would you do? What would you do? What would you do? Would you go down to the bottle-o? Have a party? Would you keep on working on your important Excel spreadsheet? Getting that PowerPoint just right? Centering that font? Making sure that the house was clean? Doing the washing? What would you do? Anyway, so this king, he was a bit self-important, he was a bit busy, but he had a lot of contact with the Buddha, so he had learnt some wisdom. And so he said, well, what else can I do if that's the case, that the mountains are coming to crush me? What else could I do in my final moments except Dhammacharya? Dhammacharya, this means studying the Dhamma, practicing the Dhamma. Sammacharya. Samma means like even-mindedness. It means like being an ethical person, living well, living in harmony with others. Punyakiriya. Punyakiriya means doing meritorious deeds, good actions, things like generosity, developing your mind, caring about others, doing meritorious deeds. And the last one, kusalakiriya. Kusalakiriya means doing wholesome actions, virtuous actions. Things like not killing, not stealing. Things like developing your mind through meditation. This is kusalakiriya, getting right view. These are all things that are very wholesome and good, right? And so the Buddha says, oh yes, very good. Pretty good answer from the king. And now we get to the real point of what the Buddha is talking about. There's no stones coming to crush you. The things that are coming to crush you, the Buddha said, is old age and death. These are coming for you. These are coming for all of us, right? And so the Buddha says, knowing that old age and death are coming for you, what would you do? And he says, well, in that case, what else could I do but Dhammacharya, following the Buddhist teachings, studying the Dhamma. Sammacharya, living ethically, living well in community. Punyakiriya, doing meritorious deeds. Kusalakiriya, doing good things, wholesome things. And the Buddha, of course, says, very good, right? And so this story is instructive because it shows why the Buddha taught mindfulness of death. It wasn't just to freak us out. It wasn't just to to make us think about the reality, but it is to make us question how we're living our life and to think about the best way for us to live. And this is something that we don't often reflect upon in our culture, right? The contemplation of death brings an urgency to this question that is lacking in our usual life, right? Without the framework of death, that question of what am I doing with my life? How am I living my life? It doesn't have any urgency to it. It doesn't have any kick to it. You could just ponder this question over and over again and not really get anywhere with it. I'm sure for many of you from time to time you're like, oh, what am I doing with my life? But because you think you're going to be here tomorrow, it doesn't have any impact on your mind. And so this mindfulness of death provides this spiritual urgency to our practice. And so that's why it's a very useful thing for us as spiritual people, as human beings. So we're going to do, in a few moments, we're going to do those 5 frequent reflections. We're going to contemplate them in turn. Does anyone have any questions about what I've spoken on so far or something they want to share? Is everyone feeling okay? Yeah? I just want to point out that Buddhism isn't the only religion that focuses upon, this aspect of our life. In fact, all religions in one way or another, all spiritual traditions incorporate this awareness of death into their spiritual traditions. I think something maybe has gotten lost with our secular society, especially rituals around life and death. We kind of don't really celebrate. We don't have these kind of markers as previous cultures did. A lot of our life has been sanitized. The sick are people who we don't often see anymore in our own homes. We don't really care for the sick. Like when people get really sick, they go to the hospital, right? We don't care for the old in our homes as we did in previous generations. We often send them to aged care homes where they can get good care because we're busy, right? But I never grew up with old people around me. I remember when I first went to an aged care home, it was horrifying, really, really difficult to confront. And the same with hospitals. When I visit people in hospitals, I'm really confronted by that. Are you? Is anyone else? Going into a hospital, going into an aged care home, it's confronting, yeah? And then it wasn't really until I was a Buddhist monk, actually, that I started to see dead people. And that was also confronting for me. And so there's these layers of obfuscation that block our ability to see these things clearly. And this exists kind of on a social level, but also on a personal level. You hear people say, I hate hospitals, I never go into hospitals, it's the smell, I can't stand it, I don't want to be there. Of course, it's not the smell, right? It's the sickness that is confronting, it's scaring. People who don't want to go and visit grandma because they want to remember her as she always was. It's a reluctance to accept the truth of old age, right? And so this is something that we need to confront, and this is why this practice of frequently reflecting on these issues is so powerful, because it allows our mind gently over time to incline towards the truth. And we use our meditation as a kind of safe place for us to investigate these things so that we can see it more clearly. And by doing this, what we're actually doing is coming into line with reality. We're seeing in accordance with reality. And so we're going to go through these 5 frequent reflections. When it comes to the separation one, that's pretty easy to understand too. Yeah? When it comes to the kamma, all of us are going to be in very different places with this topic. If we had more time, we could kind of delve into it more deeply. Some people are going to have a very skeptical view of the doctrine of karma. Some people might have full conviction of it. So I'm just going to have to leave you with your own views, right? But I'm presenting the Buddha's doctrine here in this session, and that is that there is a result to our intentional actions of body, speech and mind. And yesterday we spoke a little bit about, you walk into like a room full of angry people and you can feel that, yeah? You also know that if you kind of yell at someone and slap them across the face, they're likely to yell back at you and maybe throw a punch or two too, right? So there's these ways that we can kind of see cause and effect. But I'll just have to leave it up to you for this session, since we don't have too long, to think about what it means in your own world. And you can also just understand really basic cause and effect through things that you've seen in your own life. Anyway, so I just sort of frame it slightly, because I know that there's a lot of different views and a lot of different beliefs in the room. Okay, so we're going to do 30 minutes of meditation again. So take a comfortable posture, something that works for you. And remember, you can always move throughout the day. If you need to sit in a chair, you can. If you need to change posture during the meditation, you can. You don't have to stay in the one spot, rigid and still. It's okay. So let's close our eyes and allow ourselves to come back to that stillness, that sense of calm peace. And so now we've settled down a little bit. We can begin our practice of the 5 frequent reflections. I am subject to old age. I have not gone beyond aging. Even now we see our bodies getting older. Our faculties diminishing. There's nothing I can do to prevent it, because I am subject to old age. I have not gone beyond it. And this is a natural process, an unavoidable process. My bones ache, get brittle. My hair turning grey, falling out. My skin getting wrinkles, becoming thin. My nails becoming yellow and brittle. My spine disintegrating. My back hunching. My legs a bit wobbly, feeble. My teeth chipped, falling out. This is what happens to bodies that get old. And our mental faculties fade. Our mind is a bit slower. Our memories difficult to recall. We get tired. And this is natural, normal, unavoidable. This is what it means to be subject to aging, to old age. And so we see this truth clearly. We understand this is normal and natural. Just how it is. Because I am subject to old age. And I am subject to sickness. I cannot avoid sickness. I have not gone beyond sickness. I will get sick because I have a body that is subject to sickness. And there's nothing I can do about it. Sickness is unavoidable. There's always a little itch, a little pain, a little ache in this body. A cold, a cough. Things go wrong. Get a fever, stomach ache, stub our toe, break our arm. Get food poisoning. Get bitten by a mosquito, get malaria or dengue. This body is fragile. It's subject to sickness. And even now inside of me, so many sicknesses. Perhaps something growing. And this is what it means to have a body. We are subject to sickness. This is a truth, something we cannot avoid. and I am subject to death. I have not gone beyond death. Every being that is born must die. Every being that is born must die. I cannot avoid death. There are many ways to die. I could trip and fall, get bitten by a snake, get attacked, fall off a cliff, get food poisoning, cancers, car accidents, wars, drownings. There are many ways to die. And death is inevitable. Because I have a body. I am subject to death. And I must become separated from all that is dear and pleasing to me. Separated from my possessions, my things, my favorite clothes, favorite necklaces, watches, separated from all those things I have become attached to. Spent time collecting, keeping things that define me, mine, my stuff, my house, my money. I cannot keep any of this. things break, fall apart, get stolen, taken by fire or floods. And when I am old, sick, die, these things cannot help me. And when I leave this world, I can't take any of them with me. I will become separated from my family and friends. From this body. And there's nothing I can do about it. Because separation is a truth that I am subject to. And I am subject to karma. I've not gone beyond karma. I am the owner of my actions, my karma. I am the owner of my actions. I am the heir to my actions. I will be born as a result of my actions. I am related to my actions. These actions will be my fate. Whatever good or bad actions I do with intention, I will inherit the results. The things I do matter. I am subject to cause and effect. I cannot escape it. So these are the 5 frequent reflections. I am subject to old age. Why am I intoxicated by youth? I am subject to sickness. Why am I intoxicated by health? I am subject to death. Why do I get intoxicated by life? I am subject to separation. Why am I so intoxicated by things, stuff? And I am subject to karma. How am I living my life? And so now we're coming towards the end of this session. Take a few moments to review your practice. Was one of these reflections more powerful for you? Was one more challenging, difficult? What did you learn by calmly facing these truths? Will it change how you're living your life?